Well, I had to learn myself because, as you
Yeah.
know, I did psychology. We talked about it. And one of the regrets is that they don't teach you a lot about business. So I had to learn all of that myself too, how these things work. So yeah, and that's one of the things that I think as an investor and an entrepreneur, I have some advantage because I know both sides of the story. I know I've been in both situations.
Hey everyone, my name is Conor Devine and you're listening to episode number 47 of Money and Plants. If you're watching me on YouTube, even better. Just now I've had a wonderful conversation with the incredible entrepreneur Michiel van Deursen. Michiel is a Dutch entrepreneur who has built and sold a number of companies over the last 15 years. He has got to that place where most people who own their own businesses want to get to. We don't always get there, but he has reached the finish line of financial freedom. So that really means that if he wanted to, he wouldn't have to work another day in his life. He could just put the feet up under the palm tree and drink cocktails, as we actually discussed on the podcast. But look, it was a really interesting conversation. And this particular conversation is for people who are interested in business, who are interested in bettering themselves from an economic perspective, who are curious about entrepreneurs, about the mindset and the psychology of an entrepreneur. It's something actually that me and Michiel talk about, is the difference between the mindset of an employee's mentality and then that of an entrepreneurial mentality. And it's something that I'm really firm on and quite staunch in this point, that there's no hierarchy here. There's just because you don't have your own business, it doesn't mean that you're any less or better than someone who does have their own business. It is down to the type of person you are, the type of environment that you want to keep in terms of stress and all of those things. But what I do believe is that if you do work for a company, I do believe that you should give your very, very best. And I also believe that if you own your own company, that you should give your very, very best. So it was interesting because Michiel has also studied psychology, and I wanted to tap into that in this conversation. So look, it's a wide-ranging conversation about business, about the different companies that he has exited, about his investment strategy. What is the criteria for Michiel to decide whether he's going to invest in a company or not? We also talk about Ironman. He's also a fellow Ironman. He's done 7 races, just one below me, and he hopes to continue to do that. The other interesting thing about Michiel is that he only invests in plant-based companies now. He's vegan himself, and that was one of the reasons why I was attracted to him 2 or 3 years ago in terms of wanting to speak to him, because he stood out from the crowd a little bit. And the fact that he only invests in companies that are committed to reduction in the use of animals, I think that's really, really interesting. It tells you a lot about him as a human being, how conscientious he is. And I think, to be blunt, Michiel just wants to make the world a better place. He comes across as a very straightforward individual, someone who cares about people, about the environment, about animals. So we have a really good conversation. If this is of interest to you, if you like the conversation, you can reach out to me, Conor at conordevine.com. I would love you to review the podcast if you have a couple of minutes, or wherever you listen to this podcast, if you're listening to it via audio. So look, let's roll the tape. I spoke to Michiel in the last number of days. I hope you enjoy it. And I will sum up, like I always do, after this conversation with Michiel van Deursen. Michiel, good morning. It is absolutely fantastic to speak to you on Money and Plants. We've been in touch for now, I can't remember, about 2 or 3 years. I've really been following your entrepreneurial career with huge amount of admiration, actually, because I know that you've reached financial freedom and you're now doing lots of really interesting things. So welcome to the podcast. I think I'm speaking to you in Spain. How are you? How are you keeping?
Hi, thank you for having me. It's amazing to see you finally.
Yeah, to finally speak. So look, what I really wanted to get out of this conversation, it's a business podcast, but it's also a health podcast, and I know that those are two areas that you're really interested in, and also for myself. But I think in this particular one, what I really want to get the listeners in terms of creating value is to get a feel for your own experiences in terms of your entrepreneurial experiences, because you're a very successful entrepreneur. You have a number of exits under your belt. So probably before we get stuck into it, I did notice, I've heard you speak about this, but you have a degree in psychology, is that right? So I'm interested, what drew you to psychology? Because for me, economics and business is all about the study of human behavior. And if you can figure out how humans behave and think and act, then you might have the bones of a good business. So that really struck me about you, is that you did study psychology. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, well, that's actually a good question. I was young when I had to choose my study, and I think at that moment I was really interested in why are people doing what they do? What is motivating them? What is what is happening in the brains of people? Why are they choosing the things they do? I was super interested in advertising. Why does that work? Why does that not work? How can you reach people? How can you change people's minds? Change is always a big passion for me. Why do people? How do people react to change? And psychology sounded like the right study for that.
Yeah.
And in the end,
Yeah.
I ended doing neuropsychology, which was the study of the brain.
Excellent. So I've had Dr. Tommy Wood on the podcast, who's one of the world's leading neuroscientists. I had a wonderful conversation about brain health. And then only last week, I had Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, who has written an amazing book called Cured. And we talked about psychology and human behavior. So I think it's a really interesting structure for any business owner to work from. I think it's an advantage, because I sort of didn't study psychology academically, but I do feel that I have been studying human behavior for as long as I can remember. Would it be fair to say, Michiel, that you're a very curious person, that curiosity in your own brain is what drives you every day? Is that fair?
Yes, I think you can say that. Yeah, totally.
Okay. So whenever I was doing a little bit of my research, I believe that you exited. You have a number of exits under your belt right now, but you really exited your first company. Was it like the Gumtree of Holland, which you then moved to Belgium, and then you sold that company? Just a brief introduction on what happened there?
Yes, I can. When I was studying psychology, I started the Gumtree of Holland on the side, because I was really passionate about this new thing that was happening, the internet, and I wanted to do something with it. I thought this is going to change the world, so I started like a classifieds ad website for the Netherlands, but. Well, it wasn't just start it, grow, and sell it. It was all roller coaster with pivoting and things happening. So in the end, the Dutch version, the Netherlands version, didn't work out as planned. There was one competitor, and they were growing faster. They were doing everything a little bit better, and they focused on their business. What we did, and they had money. I think that's also important to say, because when I started, there was a crisis going on. The internet bubble just had burst, so there was no way to get external money. So what I did was create another company building websites for customers, and with that money invested in my classifieds ad website. And that worked quite well, but we forgot about the whole. We worked so hard on this new business that we kind of lost track of the goal of it, and we lost the market. And it's a winner takes all market, and so we were the number 2 in the Netherlands, which wasn't good enough. But then I discovered that in Belgium there was no such website yet, no marketplace. And I thought this is not going to happen to me twice. Then I moved to Brussels, moved to Belgium, set up the Belgian website, translated it into French, and focused 100% on the classifieds business, while my business partner, my co-founder, was doing the other company with me, and together we grew that into the biggest website in Belgium.
Excellent. And when did you sell that company then?
This was in 2013. We sold it to eBay.
9 years ago. Right, okay. And then whenever you sold the company, did you immediately go on holiday and put the feet up and take a rest for a few years, or what happened in the next 12 months? What happened?
That was the dream, right? If you sell your company, you go to lie under a palm tree and look at the sea and have cocktails. But that was only fun and I did. I did it for 2 months or 3 months. I went traveling to Australia and stuff, but it wasn't really. I think I still had drive and motivation, and it wasn't really easy to retire. And all other people around me were still working. It was, and what is important, I think, a big part of my identity was doing this business, was running this company that I ran basically all my adult life. So I kind of had to reinvent myself and find out what was driving me, what I was apart from the company, who I was, and I spent some time doing that.
That's a really interesting thing that you've just said there about identity and reinvention and stuff. In terms of my own business career, I've went through 3 reinventions in the last 15 years, from real estate to debt, insolvency, and now to finance. So I think for entrepreneurs, I think it's a really good thing that you do evolve and look at new things. Just without you disclosing the exit number, did you sell the company for enough money to be financially free? You don't have to work anymore if you chose that? Is that fair, or have you ran out of money?
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Very good. So really then, and just for the entrepreneurs and business owners that listen to me and follow me, in terms of exiting a business, was that a difficult thing to do at that time, that process? Because I'm involved in lots of different businesses myself and different companies, and exiting is always the dream, right? So you want to exit, you want to get the check, and then that's it. But that process for me, I found it's incredibly. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. Sometimes you're not sure if it's ever even going to happen, right up until the last moment, right? So any sort of tips or advice in terms of exiting a business for yourself, in terms of the experience that you had in 2013, and actually I think you've went on to exit a couple of other companies as well, including the Vegetarian Butcher. So any sort of thoughts around that exit process in terms of maybe the professional people around you, the do's and don'ts, maybe?
Yes, I think every exit is different, but what is a common theme is that actually I didn't really want to exit. I was so passionate about doing the company, growing it, but it was also in both situations a matter of the company was ready to exit. The company was mature. It needed a new owner, new business, a new injection of money to go forward, and it was the right time actually to exit.
Okay, and it went relatively smoothly. Like eBay didn't come back and chip the price. Were they okay to deal with? Was it straightforward?
Well, in fact, when the moment we were twice as big as the number 2 in the market, basically 5 or 6 companies approached us and said we need to talk, and that means basically talk about partnership or more, they call it. And then that basically means they are interested in taking you, in buying you. And then it starts, and it's basically a roller coaster. It's like dating. I think it's very much comparable to dating. You are trying to find out, is this a match? What do they want? What will the future look with you as a partner, as a company? What will the role be of myself, of the employees in the future? What will the company look like? Is it a good partner, right? So you do that. And then you find a few that you want to continue with, and some others you don't. And it's a lot about feeling, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's basically, well, in my situation, it's your baby. You work on it for like a long time. So you want to leave it in good hands. And then if your company is in a good state, because we had this sales process a few times earlier, but it didn't work because there was no match in what we wanted and what the potential buyer would like to pay. So then we just said goodbye, see you in a few years. We can better do it ourselves.
Okay.
That's a comfortable choice to make if you don't really want to sell. It has to be good for both parties.
Yes, fair enough. And it's always a relief once you close out on the deal. But so one of the things I wanted to ask you, my sort of take on humans is that you always should give your best no matter what. So if you work for a company, you should try and be the best employee in that company. You should give your best. Or if you're an entrepreneur, if you own the business, you should give your best. But I'm interested in the difference in the psychology then between an entrepreneurial type person and what I call an employee. So, and actually, I think, Michiel, that not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur. I don't think we all have to be entrepreneurs. I don't think you need to own your own business to be successful in life. So I'm interested in what you think might be the difference between someone who is an outstanding employee and then maybe someone who has got the skills to be an outstanding entrepreneur. Do you think psychologically there's a different makeup in those two profiles?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there's definitely a difference in these two profiles. And it's probably something about risk, appetite.
Yeah.
Because I think as an entrepreneur, you must be willing to lose everything. Both of them work really hard, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to put the company before your company's interests before your own. At some point, you have to be willing to not pay salary if you can't your own, because your employees have to get salary first. Stuff like that.
I think certainly from a risk perspective, because whenever I made the move to set up my own company in 2010, we were in the middle of a financial crash, and I had a very good job at the time. I was a director in a property company, but I remember handing back the keys to my car, my company credit card, and I left the business with very little money at a little shitty office on my own. I had no clients. I had about some money in the bank, but not a lot. But I was sort of gambling, Michiel, that I had 12 months of income, that I thought I only needed 12 months of income to keep me going, and then I would build my company. But lots of other people at that time would have loved to have done what I did, because a lot of people end up hating their jobs, hating their colleagues, and they want to do their own thing. But I just think it's a certain type of person who is willing to make the leap. And it's certainly, I don't think I'm employable, actually. I probably couldn't work for anyone anymore. And I really enjoy the journey that I'm on. So it's interesting. I definitely do think, I don't think there's a hierarchy there, Michiel. I just think it's absolutely fantastic to be an employee. But also equally, if you want to be an entrepreneur, then I would encourage people to do that. I'm interested there. You did say that, which I did find, because I would class myself as an entrepreneur, as a business person, but I'm not willing to lose everything, right? So I'm just not, because my day job and how my brain works is to mitigate risk. Right. So I'm not losing in my mindset. I'm not losing everything. So I can only de-risk projects through my experience and my judgment and all of that. But do you really is that what you really believe, that you are still willing to risk everything at the moment? That tells me that you're still interested in investing in quite a lot of money into projects. So from your own perspective, does that still sit with you? You're willing to risk everything?
Yes, well, it's not like a risk like in a casino where you put everything on red, but it's a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And I think I had the same experience as you. When I started my career, for a short time, I worked in an IT company and I was a consultant, and they had a whole path tracked. They had a whole path for me where I would end up with a trainee class, and then I would end up running a business unit and whatnot. But they made me choose either that or my classifieds ad website, which I was running.
Right. Okay.
And I said, why not both? Because I like your income, but I also want to do this classifieds. But no, they said, no, you have to make a choice. And that was really difficult. And I talked to a lot of people. And then I found out a lot of people, they appreciate the income. And it's not a hierarchy, as you said, right? I agree with that fully. But it is, I would regret forever if I wouldn't have done it, if I wouldn't have stepped into the deep end and run my business. But I also, it's not about losing everything, willing to lose everything. But if I would take the business, if I would run my own business, it could fail. And you always have to be able to understand you can fail. Most businesses fail. So that's what I mean with willing to risk everything. Plus, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a passion, have a goal, and it's not always about making money. I have mostly other goals. My goal with the classified website was to reduce waste and to make secondhand stuff more valuable, to make the world a little bit better. And with a goal like that or a passion, I do that still with my investments. So yeah, I'm willing to bet a lot to make my goals happen.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think it's probably fair then to just to go back on that a little bit, to say that whenever you make that original jump to set up your own company, you pretty much are prepared to lose everything, because it's sink or swim. But I think as you mature as an entrepreneur and then you start to make some money and maybe you do an exit, then obviously you're going to tone back and your appetite for risk probably reduces, because you don't need to take as much risk as that day that you said, right, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to start my own company. So yeah, I accept that's fair. Just one of the other things that there's a lot of things that I admire. Actually, I have a virtual boardroom in my head, and I've had one for about 10 years. And you don't know this, but you're in it. Even though we've just spoken, for the first time, you know that we've been in contact. But I have different people in my head. I don't need to meet them anymore. I go on LinkedIn. I read. I listen to their podcasts. I look at their websites, and it's amazing the amount of resources out there today for young people, entrepreneurs who want to improve and better themselves. And one of the other things that I'm obviously vegan and plant-based. The reason I went plant-based and vegan was for health reasons. I was very, very ill for many years, and then I changed direction in my life, and I've been able to go through this incredible health journey. And then I came across yourself, and we've done the Ironman stuff, and I'm going to come back to that. But in terms of your investment strategy now, you only invest in companies which reduces animal cruelty. Is that fair? It's plant-based companies, vegan companies. You won't invest in anything else other than that. Can you talk to me a little bit about your motivations around that?
Yeah. Well, as I said, when I sold my company, I was searching for a while. I tried a lot, and I tried to find a new passion. And one of the things I also needed to do was work on my health, because I wasn't very healthy. I worked, I was working a lot, sitting behind my computer. So then I found the Ironman thing that we share, and I discovered it's 4 sports actually. Ironman. It's swim, bike, run, and eat, because you eat a lot when you train. And I dove into it, and I found out that plant-based was actually the most healthy approach. Um, it's better for recovery. It's just general better for health. And I found this is I found and when I remember when I found out that this is so interesting. Why doesn't anybody know this, right? How is it possible that nobody knows this? And it's clear. Plant-based is better for your health. It's obviously better for the animals in the industry involved. They don't have the best lives. It's better for the planet, and it solves so many problems if everybody would go plant-based. It's like, and I had the same feeling I had before with when I discovered the internet, when that was a growing thing, and I thought this is going to be big and I want to be part of it. So, and then I started looking into companies, and one of them was the Vegetarian Butcher, which was still quite small in Holland, a few guys. And I contacted them and I said,
Yeah.
can I help? How can I help? And I just sent them a DM via Twitter, and they responded immediately. We set up a meeting, and it clicked. And from there on, I was an investor in their company.
Brilliant. And so in terms of your investment strategy now, I know you own CapVest, is it, or Capital V? What's the correct title?
Yeah, and we invest only in companies that are helping to get as many animals out of production as possible.
Yeah, I think it's interesting whenever I speak to people and they're interested in my story of recovery from MS, and then they hear I'm doing marathons and Ironmans, they're going, geez, that's pretty good. But whenever I'm out speaking to schools and stuff, I think it nearly takes a health challenge or a health problem for people to reevaluate their health. And what I say to people, like, everyone's going to get sick at some point in time, and the real driver of every illness, cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, is inflammation, right? And the best, obviously, diet, the best way to feed yourself then is a more plant-based diet. So it's so obvious that unfortunately it does take an illness for people to waken up, right? And my message is don't wait. Like, you don't have to get sick before you change. Have a think about this now. And that's why I do a lot of this advocacy work. And it's just really interesting from your perspective, because you had exited your companies, you had made enough money to do whatever you wanted to do. But you did say that you weren't feeling that healthy. Were you tired, or were you carrying more weight than you are now? Did you have a health condition? What was the health issue? Just wanted to get fitter?
Yeah, I wanted to get fitter. I was not having the most healthy lifestyle. I was overweight, and I didn't move a lot. I didn't do any sports. I walked maybe 10, 20 minutes a day, and that was it. And I really wanted to change that. I wanted to change the way I feel. I was tired. I was not looking healthy.
Yeah. And you're obviously, from a psychological perspective, you're a conscientious person. So, you understand that as you get a little bit older, you have to look after your body, and you probably have lots of other goals, and you don't want to be the richest man in the graveyard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I really want to live as long as possible. And that's also part of the things that plant-based people do, is that generally they live longer.
I don't know if they have this saying in Holland, but when someone dies, the car that takes them to the graveyard is a hearse. Is it called a hearse? And so one of the other Irish sayings is there's no tow bar on a hearse. It can't carry the money. Yeah, I understand. So what other investment strategies do you have? So if I was prospecting you for one of my businesses, and I was trying to raise some money, and you liked obviously it would have to be in the plant-based sector, so it'd have to reduce the reliance on animals. What other criteria are you looking for in a prospect? So say someone like me, what do you want to see?
Well, there are two things. my investment strategy and what I'm looking for in companies, right? So I will start with the last one. What I look for in companies general is I would like the company to have multiple founders, a co-founder, because if you have a company, if you're running a company, it can be quite alone at the top. So you need at least somebody to talk to. I want people that understand the fact that other people, that the team is super important. They need to be able to ask for help and advice, take it on board, not just take it on board, but do something with it and then do what they want themselves, of course. Know their numbers. Basically team players with a vision, and they need to be mission aligned. I think put the company before their own things. Don't take things personally, and be able to learn.
Okay, excellent. One of the things the big experience, Michiel, I got out of the debt restructuring business that I still own is I've met hundreds of business owners over the last 10 years. And it's interesting because most of them, and I say this in the right tone that I mean it, they're financially illiterate. So they don't understand cash flows, they don't understand debt, equity, loans. I speak to my accountant about that, but they're maybe a brilliant entrepreneur, they're very creative, they've got a great business, but they just don't understand the numbers. So I'm asking you then, as an investor, is that something that you can help them with? If you've seen this great company, great entrepreneur, but they were a bit short in their understanding of the finances, are you prepared, or have you people that you can put in there to continue then to agree to invest in that company? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I had to learn myself because, as you know, I did psychology. We talked about it, and one of the regrets is that they don't teach you a lot about business. So I had to learn all of that myself too, how these things work. So yeah, and that's one of the things that I think, as an investor and an entrepreneur, I have some advantage because I know both sides of the story. I know I've been in both situations. So yeah, I can help with that, and I don't immediately shoot them down if they don't know, if they are not financial gurus. So I can help with that.
Yeah.
But in the end, of course, again, you need to be willing to learn or take somebody on your team who is good at it, and make sure that's also in your company. I'm not going to do it for you.
I think the other thing I would say is that if you are an entrepreneur and you do own a business and that you can see that the trajectory has got up and you're going really, really well, I think it's really important that you reach out. And if you don't, like Henry Ford, he doesn't need to know how every way they build the card, but you don't have to because somebody else knows it. So I think it's really important that you do get someone in who's maybe a finance head, financially illiterate, because if you're going to speak to an investor like you, and I pitch and prospect every day, most weeks, if you don't understand the numbers or have a basic understanding of them, then it's game over. It's not going to work. So I think that's a journey that every entrepreneur, and as you get more experience, you start to learn more. And if there is a scalable opportunity there, then you'll bring somebody in, or you know enough to get to the next stage. So
it's important to know your numbers, right? If I wake you up in the middle of the night, you have to know your numbers. Still, it has to be top of mind because a business is basically about numbers.
But I think the other thing about that is, if you don't know something, right, it's quite intimidating, that subject matter, because you don't really know. I think there's two things in that. One is don't let on, don't try and sort of bullshit your way through the numbers. If you're trying, that's not going to work. And just be open about it. As you say, if you're open to learning, it's not rocket science. Cash flows, you actually can spend some time with people who can help you with that. So look, I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's really helpful for me as well to speak to someone like yourself who is at that stage in your entrepreneurial career. I'm wondering, Michiel, what experiences to date has most shaped you then as a human being? What do you think? Was it your chat? Were you always, from a young kid, really ambitious to stand on your own 2 feet? Were you always an independent person who was really curious, who wanted to make his own money? Was there experiences in your life that shaped you to where you are now?
Yeah, good question. I think it's a lot of small things, not a few big things. But I did have a quite a humble childhood. We didn't have a lot of money,
Okay.
and I saw yeah, what that did to people. I think I did play a lot of Monopoly. I was addicted to playing Monopoly, so the game, you know. So I was already uh, yeah. I like the concept of money and what it can do. I was really interested in change as a from very young. I really liked the innovation, change, how these things work, um, and what also it's not a life experience, but in general, I think nature just always inspires me. Seeing that nature is always there, takes over, um, grows independently, and how tiny humans can be. You know, it's you can think it's all about yourself or it's all about money or making money, but in the end, we are just here on this planet for a very short time, and and we are part of something much bigger. And I think that's the realization of that has shaped me too. And then more recently, when I was training for Ironman the year before, I got in a quite a big accident. I was on my bike doing my last long ride before the full Ironman, and I got hit by a car, a Range Rover, and I can assure you, don't do that. The Range
Yeah.
Rover had a smaller dent than I did, but I went to the hospital, was in a coma for a week or so, spent a
Oh,
lot of
goodness.
time, broke like 22 bones in my body. I had to start all over again
Okay.
from start. And after that, I think, realized again how precious life is and how much
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know that about your accident, and that was an event and a traumatic event in your life. I'm sure that has affected your perspective on things. You did mention something there about Monopoly, and I had a gentleman called Hugh Hendry on the podcast in July. Hugh Hendry is one of the most famous hedge fund managers in the world. He grew up in a council house in Scotland and um, decided to better himself to get himself out of poverty. He now lives in St. Bart's. It's a wonderful place to live. He's very successful, made over 100 million. But his take on economics and on money is fascinating for me. And one of the things that I'm passionate about, Michael, is financial literacy and trying to teach people to understand money better. And what you, Henry, because I think if more people in the world were financially literate, then they could extract themselves out of poverty. And one of the big problems in the world right now over the last 50 years is that there's so much inequality. Okay. And the gap between the rich and the poor continues to grow. So that's why I'm really interested in finance. That's why I've launched the podcast Money and Plants, because I just myself, again, I come from humble enough beginnings. I haven't made it by any stretch of the imagination, but I am doing okay. And I'm very confident that I will continue to do okay. But would you agree with me around you? Because you talked about monopoly, and for me, I've always wanted to lend money. So I own a lending business. So we lend money to businesses. And I'm fascinated with money, who controls the money supply, how does money work? So that understanding of money, you're self-taught. You weren't taught about money in university or school, right? Is that correct in Holland? So what's your thoughts about money? Would you agree with what I'm saying about inequality, financial literacy, that only a few people in the world understand it? And I just don't think that's the way it should be.
I 100% agree. Yeah, and I think there should be much more attention to that, and from this should be taught in schools. And I think
Totally. In the
once you
curriculum.
understand what money does, what it can do, how it behaves, that it's a tool, not an end goal. I think once you understand these things, yeah, it's so important.
See, my mum would say like money doesn't make you happy, and I would agree with her when she said that. But but it is quite powerful, and it is a utility, and it can help people, and it does help people. So that just it's I'm letting you into my mind. I really mean that. I am passionate about financial literacy, and that's why I haven't done a podcast like this on the show, really, Money and Plants, within as successful as entrepreneur as yourself. So I'm delighted that in Holland, I mean, the school system in Holland, my perception is that it's quite good. That people, the Dutch perception would be that Dutch people are they're quite well educated, they're very intelligent, they're interested in academia. Is that fair? Is the schooling system quite advanced in Holland? Yeah.
Quite a good system. Yeah, very, very good, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, Michiel, I'm going to wrap it up soon. But if there were three pieces of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs, what sort of jumps out at you? Because there's going to be a lot of people who haven't exited and haven't got to where they hope to get to in the next 5 years. You thankfully you have got there. So what three pieces of advice would you give to entrepreneurs today?
Well, that's a good question again. I think, first of all, the numbers, right? It's a very difficult market right now. Everything is changing, and so you have to really be careful, be prudent, use your money wisely, spend wisely, and if you can do it without investors, I would do it without investors, because that makes you more independent.
Okay.
Especially now. Take care of yourself. I think that's very important. Just look after yourself as a person, mentally, physically, and also understand that it's a roller coaster. It's not always fun. It's not always not fun. It's also a lot of times fun, but all of the above. It's part of the ride.
Yeah.
And in the end, you will hopefully remember the fun things, and it will all be worth it. And enjoy the ride too.
I would say I've got my own consultancy business 12 years now, and most of it has not been fun. But it does give you a level of autonomy and control of your own, I suppose, your own life. And it does give you an element of freedom. I just want to finish up asking you about Ironman. So I have done 2 full Ironmans and 6 half Ironmans. Probably going to do either a full or a half next year. I didn't do one this year. It's the first time in 5 years I haven't done a race, but I've been really busy coaching kids soccer and with my companies and stuff. So how many Ironman have you done, and are you hoping to do any more races?
Yeah, I did 1 full one only, and 6 halves as well.
Yeah.
And in the COVID, in the pandemic, I was not doing an Ironman, but it kept being postponed. So I trained like 2 years for the same half, and now I think I'm interested in doing another half again soon, in a year or something.
Yeah, I think my conscious mind is saying, yeah, I'm thinking about doing a full Ironman next year, but my subconscious is going, that's never happening. You're not going to do a full, you'll do a half. So
That's the thing. It's like a full-time job doing a full Ironman, training for it, and it's totally worth it. But it's like running a company, you know. It's so many ups and downs, and some days are going better and not, and you're confronted with yourself a lot when training all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely a time thing for the full one. The half you can manage and get through it, but the full one is too painful not to do the proper training. So Michiel, look, I really appreciate your time this morning. Where can people find you? Are you active on any of the social media channels if people want to have a look at what you've been up to, or your website?
Yeah, I have a website. It's called capitalv.vc. I'm on LinkedIn, obviously. And I have also helped set up a platform, Vivolution.com. where it's a marketplace between startups and investors in the plant-based space. I was doing marketplaces in the beginning, and I was doing investing. So I thought, why not combine these two? So on vivolution.com, you can find a lot of stuff too.
And just final question. What markets in the plant-based space do you think are interesting right now? Where are the opportunities? What are you trying to get into? What companies are you looking to get into? Did I see you talk about fashion?
Yes, because I've been in this space for quite a while now, and I'm always looking for new stuff, for innovation, for disruptive change and stuff. Food is something. There are a lot of investors active now and a lot of startups, and I think I'm not needed there anymore. But what I'm currently very excited about is vegan materials or plant-based materials like leather, but made from plants. Also not plastic, because the alternative for animal-based materials used in fashion is often plastic, which is also not good for the planet. So there's now a new type of company popping up, and they're making leather, wool, all kind of stuff, cotton alternatives from waste streams, from materials like pineapple leather. They use the pineapple leaves, stuff like that. I think. And
are these companies, alternative leather companies, are these going to come from the Far East or Africa? Because I live in Ireland, so I don't even know where I would get an alternative material to leather in Ireland, or do I just not know? I mean, are the materials, alternative materials, everywhere, and we don't know about them, or what's your thoughts on that?
They're still small, I think. There are only one or two ones that are now able to scale, and it's a really big industry, fashion. If you want Nike as a client, for example, you need to be able to produce a lot. Most cannot do that yet, but they are everywhere. You have the Italian ones. They use olive leftovers. You have one that makes materials from beer. From leftovers from the beer industry, so that could be local. I think Pinatex, the pineapple one, is based in London, so it's in the UK. They source their materials from all over the world, but the companies are everywhere.
You've got me thinking about the beer one, because in Ireland we're quite good at drinking beer. So there's maybe an opportunity there, Michiel. So look, Michiel van Deursen, it's been amazing to talk to you. I'm going to keep in touch with you. I'm going to keep following you for inspiration. So I just want to say thank you very much for coming on, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Looking forward.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Michiel. I hope you will check him out in terms of his website. Look at some of the stuff he's up to now with Capital V. I think it's really interesting. In my day job, I actually speak to investors and entrepreneurs and business owners and a whole ream of people from the business community. And I'm always looking for characteristics, and it's so fascinating that, you know, human beings in general, we're all extremely different. And Michiel is a really interesting character because, you know, he's obviously quite calm. How he presents himself, he's Dutch, obviously, so he's very conscientious, quite sober when you speak to him. But also he's got an incredible brain, and I think what really helped him in his own journey in life, not only business, is whenever he went on to study psychology, and he's really curious and finding out about how the human brain works. And I think from a business owner's perspective, I think if you can understand human behavior, what humans like, what they don't like, I think it's a really good base to work from in terms of bringing a product or a service to the market that people might like. So I thought that was interesting whenever we talked about that in the conversation. We went into his passions, his motivations, his background as an entrepreneur. Pushing through difficult moments is something that we spoke about. And also then I was interested in his thoughts on the personality traits of entrepreneur. What makes a good entrepreneur? So look, that was a different podcast to last week's with Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, where we talked about how the body can heal itself. This week was all about business. So I hope it's added some value to you in terms of understanding what it takes actually to build a successful company. And the difference then between a company and also being an investor. Two very different things, being an entrepreneur and an investor. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you do too. Reach out to me, Conor at conordevine.com. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, look forward to that. If you have a second, refer this podcast, send it to one of your friends if you think someone might enjoy it. And also, if you would not mind, I would love you to leave me a review wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, look after yourself and each other.